Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. One of the key causes of collapses of societies is their worldview of money management, of economics, of finance, of the role of money. And money is something that is attached to us as human beings. As Allah has inbuilt in us as human beings the attachment towards the opposite sex, similar way Allah has made within us the attachment towards money. زُيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ حُبُّ الشَّهَوَاتِ مِنَ النِّسَاءِ وَالْبَنِينَ, and the list goes on in Surah Al Imran. That these are things that have made something that is beautiful to us, and that's for a purpose. That if we didn't have attachment towards the opposite sex, the human population would extinct. There will be no marriage, no reproduction. Similar way, if we don't have attachment to the money, then the world will not progress. We will not be able to build civilization, societies, and it will not work. For example, the societies who did not acknowledge this attachment of individuals towards money, they didn't acknowledge it like the communist societies, they couldn't flourish, because this is it goes against the rule of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He has said. So let's start with agreeing that we have an urge and love of money. Now, similar to the love towards the opposite sex, Islam has allowed and recognized and respected this attachment towards money and sex, but in these situations Islam came to regulate, to bring it under control. Allah didn't leave us like what the people of Shu'aib has told to their prophet Shu'aib, أَوْ أَن نَفْعَلَ فِي أَمْوَالِنَا مَا نَشَاءُ. Who are you to come and prevent us from exercising our individual freedom and rights to do whatever we want with our property and money? We'll do whatever we want. No. Islam came and said that yes, you have right towards money, we recognize your love and attachment towards money, but here is the conditions. You have to work within that framework. As Islam made similar things with the marriage. You can marry 1, 2, 3, 4, not more than that. You cannot go for zina. The whole solution. And when Allah makes these solutions, He knows. أَلَا يَعْلَمُ مَنْ خَلَقَ. He is the engineer who has created us and the societies, and He knows very well what works and what would not work. And many of the collapses, since we are discussing the collapse of societies and communities, it comes from problem in these elements. Today I wanted to just talk about the problems in the dealing with the money and the economics. And we have been discussing Surah Ar Rum. Didn't forget to hint on these things, because this is Surah Ar Rum, a surah that talks about these things, and I have been telling you about these elements or parameters of collapse from Surah Ar Rum in the previous sessions. So here we'll find, first of all, let's say verse 37. أَوَلَمْ يَرَوْا أَنَّ اللَّهَ يَبْسُطُ الرِّزْقَ لِمَنْ يَشَاءُ وَيَقْدِرُ إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِقَوْمٍ يُؤْمِنُونَ. To observe, first of all, the earning of money, it is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So first of all, we have to go for the ultimate source, where to ask for money. And it is coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah has defined a rule that He gives and He prevents. He makes some people rich, He makes some people poor. And because the world is a place of test, Allah makes this as a test to see that how do we react. Would we pass this test or we fail? Will we pass the test of affluence by giving the zakah, sharing with the others, and also the test of poverty by attaching with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So نَبْلُوكُمْ بِالْخَيْرِ وَالشَّرِّ فِتْنَةً وَإِلَيْنَا تُرْجَعُونَ. Allah tests people with both type of these elements. And often, while we might pass the test of poverty, we can fail the test of affluence. People start to transgress. كَلَّا إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَيَطْغَى أَن رَآهُ اسْتَغْنَى. Whenever person feels that I'm ghani, I'm rich, starts to becomes overflow with pride and arrogance, and starts to transgress, starts to deprive people from their rights, starts to see how I can exploit the ignorance and weakness of a segment in the society and rob them from their properties and monies and all these things. So here we can see now various forms of degradation in the Western capitalism system. So at one end there was the communism system who denied the need of or attachment of a person to money. وَتُحِبُّونَ الْمَالَ حُبًّا جَمًّا, and you love the money so much. So when they deprived them, it collapsed. But when you go to the other extreme, and this extreme is the one that is now upper hand in our society, so we have to discuss that other extreme. Since we, alhamdulillah, we got rid of communism, now the capitalism is becoming one of the key problems of the current societies. And in the capitalism, it goes to the other extreme by giving the freedom that, okay, go do whatever injustice you want and exercise inequality to maximize the earnings of a smaller segment of capitalists, corporate capitalism. And to do that, they exercise all kind of unethical things. They exploit the ignorance of the people, the knowledge asymmetry. They hide some facts. They will tell you that, okay, you know, those hedge funds manager or many of these corporate investment bankers and those who go for these junk loans and all this crisis that happened in 2008, they will say that money is the alchemy. The alchemy of life is money. Come to us, give us money, and we'll turn gold out of dust. And they exploited the ignorance of the people. You know, when there was the Cold War period with Russia and the NASA was making their race towards going to the moon, they employed most talented people from those big universities who are engineers and genius in math and physics and this and that. And they were doing the rocket science things. When this Cold War vanished and the race ended, those people need to find a place to work, those talented math graduates and whatever, okay? So they say that, okay, let's go to another type of war, that is the capitalism war under the globalization. So now they became the hedge funds managers, they become the investor bankers, and they came and they exercised the same math and say that, okay, we have a derivatives and double derivatives and this and that, and we'll make some kind of solution for you. You give me $10, I will make you $100, okay? Double digit returns and this and that. And they came up with formulas that nobody understands, and they get fear out of it from far. Oh, this is very complex, but I trust you. And that's the root cause, among many other things, of course, of some of the crises that we feel. And these are taking the mankind to collapse. So these things are very much inbuilt into the psyche of the Western capitalism, or to be more precise, with the WASP mentality. White Anglo-Saxon Protestants. White Anglo-Saxon Protestants, those who sometimes use God to get gold. And many of these things were in the heart of the colonial sentiment and in the heart of the economics, really. I mean, when you see the East Indian Company, what was their motivating force? They just wanted to get the resources from India, the rich India with its fertile lands and all kind of products, and they wanted to build London. So this is the East Indian Company basically, right? Wealth of Nations, Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations. In the very beginning, I heard many times Noam Chomsky describing these things, that in the very beginning of Wealth of Nations, I think he indicated page 90 or so, I don't remember, that these are called the masters of universe, those who are sitting on those corporate. So this is like 200 years back, and it is as true today as it was this long time back, that they are playing with the money, and the money whoever controls it, they are like the masters of the universe. This term is there in that book, Wealth of Nations. These are the masters of the universe trying to control everything. And even today, IMF, World Bank, and all these organizations are just apparatus at the hand of the US's hegemony over the world, which I think this unipolar concept is now subsiding because of China and other factors. But instead, I'm not an expert in this field, and this is not my topic here. I'm coming back to Surah Ar Rum just to tell you that how useful this ayat for us, even in the contemporary discussions around the economics and the progress of nations. So Surah Ar Rum, in these verses that I told you today, 37, 38, 39, you just continue reading. I will keep this as a homework for you. But you see here is that the nature of Islam, or in the heart of our philosophy and the outlook, is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala controlling the risk. He is controlling the risk. He is the one who deserves the title Master of the Universe, and not those corporate capitalists. If you leave it to their hand, they will just make things go downhill, and they will lead societies into corruption and collapse. أَوَلَمْ يَرَوْا أَنَّ اللَّهَ يَبْسُطُ الرِّزْقَ لِمَنْ يَشَاءُ وَيَقْدِرُ. He's the Allah who has this power. He does this. That's why the ayah ended, إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِقَوْمٍ يُؤْمِنُونَ. These are only signs for those who have this faith. So in a faithless world, in an atheist world, in a secular world, this type of signs is absent. And that's one of the root causes. And that's why the next verse, go to 38. فَآتِ ذَا الْقُرْبَى حَقَّهُ وَالْمِسْكِينَ وَابْنَ السَّبِيلِ ذَلِكَ خَيْرٌ لِلَّذِينَ يُرِيدُونَ وَجْهَ اللَّهِ. The altruistic nature, the religiosity, and its attachment or its effect on philanthropy, altruism, helping the poor, the solidarity among the society, you will find it because when we have wajh Allah, yuriduna wajh Allah, those who seek the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they are the one who go beyond this selfish attitude that I just wanted to rob people from their rights and I want to gain my own interest, which is in the heart of the philosophy of capitalism. In the heart of the philosophy of capitalism is that you wanted to maximize your own interest without resorting to any moral or justice, because there is no ultimate God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, sovereign power that is watching over us. There is no iman, there is no day of judgment, there is no concept of yuriduna wajh Allah that Allah has pointed in verse 38. Okay, that's why you'll find all kind of tricks that under marketing, advertisement, they target the ignorant, those who still didn't reach maturity. They target the school kids with some cartoon products. They will sell watches with Ben 10. Okay, always my kids comes and say that, okay, in my class that person has purchased that kind of brand out of that cartoon, whether it is Barbie doll or I don't know, Ben 10 or whatever, and they wanted it next day, okay, because of all this advertisement and marketing and whatnot. Similarly, they will target another category, which is a woman with their fashions, and okay, so all these billboards, you will be mesmerized when you are in the Times Square. You just turn around 360 degrees and all these flashes of marketing, and okay, this is the world of trickery. This is the world of corporate materialism and consumer capitalism, and so this will just take us to collapse. And we have started to see what kind of ugly world it has created. And contrast that with what we have in this surah, with the Islamic worldview. آتِ ذَا الْقُرْبَ حَقَّهُ. You have rights towards your relatives, your miskin. There is the concept of zakah, there is the waqf, the philanthropy under Islam. And see, for example, the time of Umar ibn Abdul-Aziz, who is sometimes called the fifth Khalifa. He came towards after 100 years of the hijrah of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. He has made such a economic system to the extent that everybody was rich. The person who is distributing zakah, he was making announcement in the streets of Medina, come for zakah, I want you to pay zakah. Nobody is coming because everybody is rich. So these are not fairy tales, these are not just fictitious utopian world. This has happened, and it will happen in the future, because we also know that when there is such a government, such a ruling system under Islam, let's say at the time of Imam Mahdi, at the end of the worlds, when the Islam becomes very much global and everybody enjoys the justice and rules in all faculties, including the economic sector, there will be barakah. Barakah is coming. Okay, so this is it. I mean, أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ. They are the one who are successful in the end of 38. Let me very quickly go to the 39. وَمَا أَتَيْتُم مِّن رِّبًا لِيَرْبُوَ فِي أَمْوَالِ النَّاسِ فَلَا يَرْبُو عِندَ اللَّهِ وَمَا أَتَيْتُم مِّن زَكَاةٍ تُرِيدُونَ وَجْهَ اللَّهِ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُضْعِفُونَ. Very beautiful ayah. Very beautiful ayah. That when your transaction with your fellow human being is based on trickery, and I want to maximize my utility, maximize my profit on the expense of showing talents and tricking from my opponent, exploit the knowledge gap of my opponent. If this is your ethics, فَلَا يَرْبُو عِنْدَ اللَّهِ. All these things will vanish. Society will not see the fruit of it. But when فَلَا يَرْبُو عِنْدَ اللَّهِ, these things you might see when you make the calculation in a very material sense, that in a short term, yeah, I was smart, I was able to trick and rob that widow, rob that child, rob that poor, rob that student, buy student loans, rob him from some money, and it is increasing. But this is like bubbles that will collapse in this world, but in akhirah even it's injustice and destruction. فَلَا يَرْبُو عِنْدَ اللَّهِ. But when the person's concept is zakah, purification, وَمَا أَتَيْتُم مِّن زَكَاةٍ تُرِيدُونَ وَجْهَ اللَّهِ. You see, the zakah is tied with wajh Allah. That's why you cannot take out Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from this equation of economics. Equation of money, equation of economics. You cannot take out Allah, as you cannot take Him out in other branches. In other branches, social sciences and branches. So everywhere, this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And wajh Allah, that will make things, this machine work, this society work. وَمَا أَتَيْتُم مِّن زَكَاةٍ تُرِيدُونَ وَجْهَ اللَّهِ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُضْعِفُونَ. And finally, verses 40, I will end with it. اللَّهُ الَّذِي خَلَقَكُمْ ثُمَّ رَزَقَكُمْ ثُمَّ يُمِيتُكُمْ ثُمَّ يُحْيِيكُم. It is Allah who has created you and given you provisions, opened up the doors of increasing your GDP, opened up subnatural resources, farmland, animal production, fisheries, minerals, world trade. These are the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's not only that, ثُمَّ يُمِيتُكُمْ ثُمَّ يُحْيِيكُم. It's the Allah who will make you die. Allah controls your life and death. And He will also bring you up. Is any of these things that Allah has listed, is any of those who sometimes out of arrogance claim that we are the masters of the universe, do they really have any control over these elements in the universe, in terms of the creation, in terms of controlling the wind and the water and the fisheries and the minerals? These are all elements of the progress of societies when they progress and they become developed world or whatever. Anybody has control over this other than Allah? The answer is no. This is a rhetorical question. مَن يَفْعَلُ مِن ذَلِكُم مِّن شَيْءٍ. So Allah is exalting Himself at the end of verse 40. Subhanahu wa ta'ala amma yushrikun. So why you go for shirk then? Why you think that, IMF is the controller of the world, World Bank is the controller of the world, we need to please them, we need to rush towards them when we face affliction, and we forget Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these were some of the hints and snippets here and there, but the topic is bigger than that, and I'm not competent enough to talk about these things. It's not my specialization. But with Quran throws hints that supersedes all specializations. Economics will will see these verses and other verses, and he will just feel himself a small child in front of the greatest economist, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So let's benefit from this surah. Let's identify from this surah the causes of the collapse of the Western societies and Western worldview towards economics, and let's come under the umbrella of Islamic economics. Islamic banking has become very famous even among the Western societies because it's free of riba, free of this interest, free of this injustice, free of this inequality that has just maximizing the profit in the heart of its philosophy. The Western thought, okay, this is a very good alternative because they are seeing the symptoms of their illness. They wanted to rush towards East and Orient and Muslim world and were for an alternative way of dealing with the money and economics. And Islam has a full package. It's not a package that was not practiced. It was practiced for hundreds of years. It has eradicated poverty. And I told you about the story of Umar bin Abdul Aziz, rahimahullah ta'ala. So this is it. Everything is clear out to the sun. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.